The first information to reach me about the trouble in Korea was around 10 o'clock on the evening of June 24th, 1950.
It is the end of World War II, 1945. The USA had just won the war and are celebrating their victory in Europe. The Soviet Union had become one of the biggest military forces, which took up the majority of Eastern Europe and had gained a lot of land from Japan and Finland. Japan's 35-year-long rule over the Korean peninsula had come to a close. General Douglas MacArthur issued a surrender that forced Japanese rule out of Korea. Soviet Russia went and took the north of Korea, while the U.S. occupied the south of Korea. The regions were divided along the 38th parallel, a horizontal border that corresponds to the Earth's 38th degree latitude circle. The parallel was only a temporary border that marked the two regions of Soviet and U.S. rule until Korea could gain independence and its own government. It was originally planned that both the North and South would become independent as a whole country and have its own government. However, the Soviets refused to give up the reign in the North, so the South held its own election. Syngman Rhee was then elected president in the Democratic South, while in the North, Kim Il-sung was appointed leader. It is now 1950. The North launched an attack on the South to try and take the whole of Korea. The North's militia is much stronger than the South's. They had conquered most of the peninsula and pushed the South's troops to Busan. The UN sent an army of 16 countries to aid the South under the command of General Douglas MacArthur. Combat was not easy. Korea is a country with brittle winters and scorching summers, making conditions harsh to fight in. Malnutrition and disease were very common worries among the troops. The armies were at a stalemate, with the South defending the small area of Busan. They stationed troops all around the perimeter, causing the land to be neither gained nor lost. U.S. naval reinforcements came into aid, and Seoul was regained along with the rest of South Korea.
It was with the deepest personal regret that I found myself compelled to take this action. General MacArthur is one of our greatest military commanders. But the cause of world peace is much more important than any individual.
President Truman and General MacArthur had been butting heads on what to do when it came to the goals of the war. Truman looked at the war as an opportunity to stop the spread of communism, an economic and political system where the government owns and runs everything, and is led by a single party with a dictator. While MacArthur wanted to completely wipe out the Soviets' rule using brute force with no ceasefire in mind. Completely ignoring the commander-in-chief's wishes to stay out of North Korea, MacArthur crossed the 38th parallel into the north and took Pyongyang, North Korea's capital. Truman had feared a Chinese response if MacArthur entered the north. Truman's fear became a reality. Communist China sent secret troops in to help the north, and MacArthur suffered great losses and was driven out of Pyongyang, back to the 38th parallel. This was not the first time MacArthur had ignored Truman, and in 1951, MacArthur was relieved from duty by Truman himself, not only for disobeying him, but also for secretly pushing his ideas about the war on Congress. Once again, the North and South are at a stalemate, and now it's at the 38th parallel. Government officials started to work towards an end to the war, but it was looking like war would only continue. Dwight D. Eisenhower took over at the White House in 1953 and was set on ending the war. But Stalin, the dictator of the Union Soviet Socialist Republics, aka the USSR, wanted to keep the war going, but passed away that same year. After a long 3 years of intense combat, an armistice was signed in July 1953 by North Korea, South Korea, China, and the USA. A devastating 12,626,631 soldiers from all militias died or went missing, and 1,600,000 civilians from the north and south were killed. Though a ceasefire was signed and combat had ended, a treaty has not officially been signed, and to this day the two Koreas are still technically at war. The 38th parallel is now a border between North and South Korea. It runs 160 miles west to east and is 2 miles wide. It is currently a vacant demilitarized zone, meaning neither the North or the South civilizations occupy it. This allows only armed troops and authorized personnel to guard the borders 24 hours a day. Two new but very different Koreas now stand. It has been a little more than 65 years since the armistice was signed, and the neighboring countries couldn't be any more different. North Korea has become one of the most mysterious hermit countries. This was due to the influence of the 3-year-long Kim dynasty. They are not only respected greatly but worshipped as gods. The citizens believe that everything that is amazing exists because of them. Today, the country is smothered by the Kim's communist government and brainwashed into extremely nationalist views. North Korea's current dear leader, Kim Jong-un, the grandson of Kim Il-sung, who stood ground during the Korean War, indulges in a lot of foreign, specifically American, activities, such as watching NBA basketball and American films. Citizens, however, are not allowed to access any content, like movies, sports, or games. The only access they have to the world is through old smuggled films gained through illegal sellers, while the TV programs and news channels they see daily are all propaganda that glorify the country. Only a sliver of the population are extremely wealthy and live in Pyongyang, North Korea's capital. Majority of the citizens are drastically poor in comparison and are dispersed throughout the country. The South, however, is led by President Moon Jae-in and is run as a democracy. Citizens live in lively homes and apartments, with freedom to a wide variety of activities and entertainment at their disposal. This includes exposure to multicultural content. South Korea itself has a thriving entertainment industry, anything from TV shows known as K-dramas to music. The most popular genre of music is known as K-pop, which has recently been gaining major recognition worldwide by boy group BTS, the first ever Korean music act to chart and win major awards in the US. There are many other groups gaining global attention, such as NCT, EXO, Monsta X, and Blackpink, a girl group that will be performing at Coachella in 2019. Not only are the two Koreas different in terms of culture and government, but when it comes to the country itself, there are major differences to compare as well. The population of South Korea is 51.47 million, while the North has a population of 25.49 million, which is a 25.98 million difference. South Korea's GDP, or gross domestic product, is 1.531 trillion USD, which is over a 124% increase from North Korea's 12.83 billion USD. In a similar case, South Korea's infant mortality rate is 2.8 deaths per 1,000 births, and in North Korea, it is 19.5 deaths per 1,000 births. The average life expectancy in the South is an average of 82.02 years, while the North's life expectancy is an average of 71.68 years. 95.1% of South Korea's population has access to the internet, while the North has 0% with access to the internet. Overall, the difference between the statistics of each country is highly notable. It is evident that the South has much more success than the North. In contrast, the North has evolved less, and the South has thrived greatly since the end of the Korean War. The division of the Korean Peninsula was not only a case that caused the triumphs and tragedies of war, but also sparked the creation of two polar opposite countries. A triumphant, thriving metropolis in the south, and a tragic hermit kingdom in the north.